Good morning, hello, how's it going? I hope you are all having a fantastic Thursday morning so far. Hello to everyone tuning in. So, welcome to another cognitive bias video where I explore some of the shortcuts that we make in our minds and some of the problems that can lead to, as well as some of the benefits. And today I'm talking all about the hostile attribution bias, or hostile attribution error. So I've spoken a little bit, I think, about attribution before. There's group attribution error, fundamental attribution error, and this is hostile attribution error. So an attribution error, when we're talking about biases, is a tendency to attribute a certain expectation or behavior to someone else or something else, and normally someone else's actions that may or may not actually be accurate. And so the hostile attribution bias is no different. It's exactly that. It's interpreting hostile intent within someone's actions that may be ambiguous or benign, so unclear or completely innocent. And we look at them and we see hostility, we see malice, we see malintent, even if it's not actually there. Good morning, Sarah Sunderland. Thanks for tuning in. I'm a bit disappointed I don't have a message from James Chisholm saying that he's watching yet, which is just not like him. He's normally the first one on. So yeah, that's what hostile attribution bias is. Let me give you an example of this, and it's really common. It's something that tends to be researched and looked at in children a lot. Hi, Karen Sharp. So I will be talking about that side of things a little bit, but it's absolutely relevant to us as adults as well. So, hello, James Chisholm, you are here. Thanks for tuning in, even if you're a bit late. Bananas will be disappointed. So here's a really simple example. Let's imagine you've got some people building, you've got two children in a room with some building blocks, and one's built a tower and the other one has a block in their hand and is walking across the room. Pause for a moment. Take the first child. Let's call him James. Take James and say to James, okay, so Fred is walking over to your tower of blocks that you've made and he has a block in his hand. What do you think he's about to do? Now James, if he's feeling particularly grumpy or doesn't like Fred very much, might think, oh, Fred's going to knock over my tower. If James is in a good mood and feeling nice and he's a friendly kind of person, then he might be thinking, oh, Fred's going to help build my tower. Of course, James Chisholm is saying, stay away, Fred. The reality is we don't know. We don't know at this point. Unless we really understand what's going on in Fred's head, we don't know. But some people in that situation will absolutely assume that it's going to be malicious. Now, if Fred tries to place a block on top to help build that tower, but unfortunately that sets it off balance and the whole tower falls down, then the chances are James is going to think, I knew that Fred was going to damage my tower. He did that on purpose, and get really angry with Fred. But the reality is, in Fred's head, he was trying to be nice. He was trying to help. Now, it's largely believed and makes a lot of sense. Fred sounds like a demolition expert. It's largely believed and makes a lot of sense that given all other things being equal, we are more likely to lean towards assuming malintent in situations like this, because it keeps us safe, doesn't it? It's James Chisholm said, where is it? Risk reduction. There we go. There was his comment, and that's a perfect example. It's safer for us to go, well, let's assume that they mean ill, and then we'll be protected and we'll be ready for whatever might happen. For example, if they do decide to pick on us. So that's perfectly logical in a lot of ways, but it doesn't necessarily lead to the best outcomes. So, sorry, I was just trying to look for some other comments from other platforms that aren't showing up, but never mind. So it's good that we can be prepared and ready, but at the same time, it can be harmful, and it can get in our way, and it can cause us bigger problems and a lot of hurt that's completely unnecessary. So seemingly it looks very much like it's encouraged. So this hostile attribution bias is far more prevalent in... Why are you saying whoopsie, Higgs? Good morning. Yeah, it's far more prevalent in children who have suffered from abuse at home or very aggressive parenting or difficult circumstances in that respect. It's also far more common by children who have been rejected by their peers. Now, I would assert that people that have this bias are also more likely to feel rejected and generate and create that sense of rejection. So though the studies support and show a clear correlation, it doesn't necessarily show that it's causal. In other words, yes, the two are absolutely related, and there are some studies that show and imply that it's the attribution that causes the difficulty socially, but it may be the other way around as well, particularly if that stems from the home and then leads into issues with peers. Sarah says, James Chisholm is wrong and everyone is coming to build my tower. Excellent. That's a great contrast there. We've got Sarah Higgs, who just wants to play and build her tower and everyone's welcome, and James Chisholm, who doesn't even want to invite Fred just in case. So it's also been shown to lead to an increase in aggressive response, both in children and in adults. So that's perfectly understandable, makes sense. If James is going to assume that Fred is going to try and hurt him or knock over his tower, then quite understandably, James is going to feel like he needs to defend himself and his tower, and he's more likely to become aggressive. Obviously, James is a puppy dog. He's not really aggressive, he just gets grumpy. But that's the difference between my example and using a real person. I shouldn't have chosen James Chisholm as an example. So yeah, why does it matter? Why is it important? Because, if it does make you feel safer, if it does, playing into James's example, it's better to be safe than sorry. Keep him away and you can't get hurt. But here's the thing. Studies show that it really can have a hugely negative impact. And in fact, one study shows that, I'm just going to double check my figures, which is why I'm looking down. Yeah, adults that show high levels of hostile attribution are over 4 times more likely to die by the age of 50 than those who don't. Now, I'm sure that there are plenty of other factors at play here, and I'm not for a moment pretending it's down to this one thing. But this one thing definitely plays a part in the bigger picture. So, yeah, in the simple answer there is to, by all means, be vigilant, but be a bit more trusting. Don't assume that everyone's out to get you. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And it also makes a lot of sense, because people who have high hostile attribution assume that everyone's out to get them. I'm exaggerating it here slightly, but they look at every situation that they go into, in the extreme examples, and they see a couple of people laughing over there, and they go, "They're laughing at me. Why are they laughing at me?" Or someone is late for something. oh, they're late because they disrespect me. They don't care. They're doing it on purpose to upset me because they know I care about them being on time. And so those people get more and more stressed, and we all know that stress is a massive, massive negative impact on your physical health. So I think that's probably more than anything where that link comes in. But yeah, crazy, isn't it? Over 4 times more likely. And the study shows statistical significance. Over 4 times more likely to die by the age of 50. It's just huge, isn't it? James Chisholm says, what if everybody is out to get you? Well, do you know what? Firstly, they are not. Because it's not all about you, James. People have other things going on in their life that's more important than being out to get you. That being said, it is really fun to tease James, so carry on with it. But the harm that may come to you from disregarding someone else's actions rather than worrying about them is far less likely to be as impactful as the harm that would come from you from getting worked up about it. Of course, it's all about James. Run, James. Sarah's out to get you. So, okay, well, that's all well and good, but what does this mean? How do we make sense of it? And what can we do about it? Well, the first thing is to recognize it. I mean, that's the case with so many of these biases I talk about, but yeah, recognize what's going on. If you go into a pub garden and as you walk in, it feels like everyone's looking at you because they're judging you and they're out to get you, and suddenly you can exaggerate all of this in your head to be a big problem. Well, notice it early on and go, okay, well, I think everyone's looking at me. So let's try and balance that. Can I see anyone who's not looking at me? And the chances are you'll see plenty of people that are not looking at you. But when you're stuck in that mode of everyone's out to get me, everyone's looking at me, you're only going to be paying attention to those people who support that, those people that are looking at you. When you see people laughing and go, well, they're laughing at me. Well, okay, what if they're not laughing at you? What else could they be laughing at? An example of this that I mentioned in my podcast that's coming out at 4 o'clock today could be where I made a mistake once. I scheduled and planned something in that clashed with something that a friend was doing, and I didn't speak to the friend about it. Absolutely should have done. There was no other time that I could really schedule it. It had to be at that point, which is why I did. The fact that it clashed was unfortunate, but not intentional. But it kind of had to. So I should have picked up the phone and spoken to that person. I absolutely would have done that if I'd thought about it. I didn't think about it properly, therefore I didn't do that, and this person understandably got upset and I felt guilty about it. But part of what caused that upset would have been them assuming hostile intent. Not that I was out to get them, but that I knew how it would have made her feel, and I deliberately chose to do that regardless of how it would impact on her. Whereas the reality is, I was, I did act in a way that I'm not proud of, but it wasn't that I went, this will upset Ali and I don't care, I'm going to do it anyway. Actually, it was that I didn't even consider and think about and take a moment to realise the impact of my actions. And when I did and realised, luckily, Alison Mead very, very effectively and maturely actually got in contact with me, and we spoke about it and dealt with it as we needed to. Yeah, I wasn't going to mention any names, and then I saw your comment, and yeah, accidentally the name came out. No, she's still not forgiven me. But we speak about it in the podcast that comes out later, so everyone's going to know about it then anyway, Ali. So yeah, that was absolutely something that I did wrong, and that in hindsight would not choose to do. I wouldn't want to act that way. I wouldn't want to upset a friend, but I did it. But there was no hostile intent. I didn't do it because screw her. I did it because I didn't think. I just hadn't considered it. See, in our lives, we are the main character, right? Everything that we do happens to us when we're there. in the room. And it all impacts on us because we're there and we're part of it. So it's very easy to forget that we don't have quite the same level of importance in anyone else's life. Even someone who really cares about us, they are not us. They still have their own thoughts, their own things going on, their own situations, and they're not going to think in detail about everyone else before them. Sarah's now singing "It's All About Me." Excellent. Alice says it's not about James, it's about me. Absolutely. So there's a couple of different errors that are very similar to this that are at play. There's the self-serving error. So you get up, you're rushing around, you end up late for work. Because the alarm didn't go off, and then there was a problem with the trains, and then you get there and you're late and you're terribly sorry, and you kind of acknowledge to yourself, well, that's because of other circumstances, situational factors. I couldn't have really helped it. I'm not a bad person. That's just how it is. But then at work, separately, you're working on a project with someone and you need their input and they're running late. And you're more likely to say, oh, well, that person's a late person. That person doesn't care, and make it more about like their personality, about who they are. That's just them. Whereas when it's you, you wouldn't attribute it to you. You'd say, oh, it's just the situation. And I'll talk more about both of those errors in another cognitive bias video. But the hostile attribution bias kind of ties in with that, in that when we look at ourselves, we don't think about ourselves as taking actions deliberately to upset others. We do it based on what's right for us. And then other people are more likely to, or we're more likely to look at other people's actions if they hurt us and assume that that was intentional. So how can we get around that? Well, one of the best and simplest ways is for those people that matter to you, communicate more clearly and talk to them. If you've been hurt, talk about it. And the chances are they didn't mean it and they'll explain that. For those people who you don't know, well, there's a lovely saying, those who matter don't mind and those who mind don't matter. Those people that don't like you, those people that maybe they are laughing at you, well, so what? Let them laugh. What matters is the people close to you, the people that do care about you. And balance out and remember it's not all about you. People have their own stuff going on. And even if they are laughing at you, it's a passing thing. When someone trips over, or when someone doesn't have enough money on their card, or their card's not going through and they feel embarrassed, 9 times out of 10, most people, or at least most good people, will look at them and go and feel sorry for them, or kind of think, oh, that must be terrible. And they're still going to be looking because, it's drama, it's something that's happening around you. It's entertaining. But they're not likely to be thinking, oh, look at that idiot who can't, they've got no money on their card. Well, actually, as someone who's worked in a shop in the past, I can tell you most of the time there's no judgment from us as a cashier. We're not thinking, oh, this person's got no money. It's the card not going through, or it's just that they haven't got money in that account, or they've whatever. We don't even think about it. We don't question it to that extent. But as an individual in that situation, you feel embarrassed and you think everyone's watching you and judging you. And the reality is there's no hostility there. They're just watching. That's all. Communication is a reflection of who is communicating. People talk from their point of view, now personal. Absolutely, because we can only ever really express from our own perspective in natural conversation and natural interaction. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a reflection of the person communicating. It's only if you choose to interpret it that way, which is a natural thing that a lot of people do. Recognizing it sooner and just balancing it by thinking about the alternatives can be a really simple way of turning that around. So that's hostile attribution bias. I hope I hope that's helpful. Are you liking that I flashed up your comment on the screen there, Nathan? It's cool, right? I hope that's been useful. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks very much for tuning in. I will be back again at the new time of 9:30 every Thursday morning with another bias video, another video exploring different cognitive biases. And if you'd like to know more about any particular bias, please do feel free to get in touch and let me know or ask questions. And who knows, I may even do a video just for you. And yes, James, it is all about you and everyone is out to get you. You're the exception that proves the rule. So thanks everyone for tuning in. So it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Bananas, my monkey mascot. And I look forward to catching you all again soon. While I've got you all here though, and I've got your attention, it is, you're very welcome, Karen Sharp. It is Mental Health Awareness Week. So I guess, given that I'm a mental health professional, I should probably talk about it a little bit. So just very quickly, I'm going to tag on the end here and say, look, I don't think a week is enough to be aware of mental health. And the thing for me about mental health is that people are so quick to talk about mental ill health. And when you hear people talking about mental health and Mental Health Awareness Week, straight away the focus is on anxiety, depression, stress, and challenging mental ill health, which absolutely deserves some attention for sure. But what if everyone in the world were to give more attention to proactively maintaining and looking after their good mental health in the same way we do physical health? You know, when we think about physical health, we think about going for a run and eating well and looking after ourselves. Wouldn't it be great if when the words mental health are mentioned, that's what people think about and that's the focus that we have? So if you want some help with that and you want to be more proactive in looking after your mental health, then check out Relax Club. That's what it's there for. It's a simple, easy online platform that makes self-care easier than ever. And if you want to know more about that, just head to mindaffinity.co.uk/relax, or get in touch and ask me and I'll let you know. And there it is. Look, with my technology I can even put the weather dress across the bottom there. So thanks again everyone for tuning in. I hope you all have an awesome day and I look forward to seeing you all soon.